And now recognize Representative Davidson from Ohio.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Self, thanks for this hearing today. I believe you and I may be the only two members in this subcommittee who served in Europe during our time in the Army. So thank you, and I'd like to think that we can say from firsthand experience how important Europe is to the United States and how important the security relationships are there. I was there in the Cold War, holding the line when the cause freedom led to the fall of the Berlin Wall. I was there in 1989 and got to see kind of the culmination of a lot of this when the wall came down. I know what I was there fighting for, but I also know what I was fighting against, and that was totalitarianism. So we're seeing today ideas that we rejected during the Cold War being embraced by Western Europe. I often think about Vice President J.D. Vance's February speech in Munich. The Vice President noted that, quote, "Within living memory of many of you in the room, the Cold War positioned defenders of democracy against much more tyrannical forces on this continent. And consider the side in that fight that censored dissidents, that closed churches, that canceled elections. Were they the good guys? Certainly not. And thank God they lost the Cold War. They lost because they neither valued nor respected all of their extraordinary blessings of liberty, the freedom to surprise, to make mistakes, to invent, and to build," end quote. I worry that these core values that we fought for to win the Cold War are lost in the European Union and NATO today. I fear that totalitarianism has infiltrated the very institutions that we stood up to counter totalitarianism. When lawmakers are arrested for quoting the Bible, when political parties are banned despite their popularity with the public, when people are put in jail for free speech or for prayer, I mean, these aren't the things we were defending. They're not the things I think we're supposed to be defending today, but they're going on unchecked. So it's time to fundamentally assess what Vice President Vance asked. What are we defending? What are we fighting for in Europe? Now, unfortunately, many of these institutions are living in the past about a new reality. For example, in recent months, the Department of War elected not to send a rotational brigade to Romania. The Senate Armed Services Committee has responded to that in retaliation by blocking the President's nominees to the Department of War Policy Office, for example. So, Mr. Primorac, is Romania of vital national security interest to the United States? Will we be irreparably harmed by not sending this one rotational brigade there? Is this going to cause catastrophic damage to the United States security posture?
I think when we're talking about lawfare in Europe, it's against conservatives and those who hold conservative views, especially religious views. And we've seen coming out of Brussels a tendency to try to acquire more and more centralized power, and it always has a left-wing bias to it. And it's hurting throughout all of Europe. With these kinds of activities by Brussels, it encourages politicians and government officials in places like France and Germany and Poland and other places to crack down on political opposition. So they use, and it's the same thing with the disinformation campaigns with respect to Russia. There's been disinformation campaigns by Russia for decades, ever since the end of the Cold War. Maybe it stopped for about 2 years. It has continued forward. So what the administration is doing to send a clear message to Europe that we value very strongly our transatlantic relationships, but we have to have a common set of democratic values, and that means accepting opposing views.
Part of that is putting pressure on the Europeans to step up, and that's part of where the administration's policy prerogatives have said, yeah, we're going to withhold this rotational brigade. Unfortunately, within our own party, within Republican Party in the Senate Armed Services Committee is denying approval to President Trump's team. So I remember when Senator Tuberville had the courage to stand up and block nominees in the Biden administration because the Department of War was violating the law and funding abortion. A bipartisan coalition of senators descended on him to make his life really, frankly, a hell until he relented and they came up with a different way to approve nominees. It was the biggest drama in the world. But now that the glove's on the other hand, blocking our president, President Trump's national security nominees, seems not such a big deal to the Senate Armed Services Committee. So I'd like to call the Senate to stop blocking the MAGA agenda and support our president in his appointments. We can't do much about it here in the House, but I think I'd call it out. So I further commend President Trump and his team for their work in crafting a realistic peace deal in Ukraine. They've worked diligently on this, and I get that some people in the Senate want to undermine it. Frankly, some people in the House want to undermine it, and certainly some people in the European Union and NATO want to undermine it. But I think we should all come together, and as President Trump says, I want people to stop dying. So he's got a clear policy. He wants to put his team in place. I hope the Senate's going to move forward and do just that. So, Mr. Premerick, what policies can the State Department pursue to restore our values? My time has expired. I yield.
I now represent